this is chapter 1 of sharing my story as a spiritual journey. So I came back to this bridge that I found because it really starts with nature. And I brought a little friend with me. Say hi, Mara. Where I grew up was a mountain oasis, really, in Salmon, Idaho, in the Salmon Valley. And there's something magical, not to be taken for granted, about looking out your window in the morning and seeing mountains any direction you look. And all my early memories are shaped by that, of being right on the edge of the forest, where if we drove half an hour in any direction, we were in the woods. And people's backyards, every backyard. Where I lived at our apartments, but also like my grandparents' house. We went to this little church, and anybody's house we went to, there was this wonderland, of their front and backyards. Even the difference between their front and backyard was this big deal to me. And that's just every little child, right? Yes, but I still feel that way. So this is really important to me. A really important part of who I am in my spiritual journey. Because I would follow ants around and find their colony and watch them, and catch grasshoppers and watch spiders, garden spiders, and I would catch grasshoppers and feed them to the ants and feed them to the spiders. I would watch a bee going from flower to flower and look at all the different kinds of flowers, and I wanted to know what they all were. I wanted to know what all the different kinds of flowers were, and what all the different kinds of bugs were, and what their names were. And I realized that there were so many more than I knew names for. And I had heard this story that in the beginning that the first humans were given the task of naming the animals. And there were these little animal info cards that were mailed to my baby brother for some reason. And he wasn't old enough to know what they were or care, but I loved them, and I would read all of them and look at the pictures and read their names. I was so interested in how they had an English name and a Latin name, and I didn't know what that Latin name was about. But they had their classification, and I was so interested in that. Just everything. And so I very early had this love for and fascination with the animals from all over the world. And because I saw that there were animals all around me that I didn't know what their special names were, I would make up names for them. I had my own little animal taxonomy system I was trying to make, where I was naming animals, because I thought, well, that's what we're supposed to do, right? And so nature was one big thing, and that's how I remember it. Just going out into different people's backyards. Every person's house that was in my life, every person in my family, every person in the little church we went to, every person's backyard was this unique wonderland that I couldn't wait to go to next time we went there. So nature is the first thing, and everything will come back to it, so I'll have to come back to it. The next and related thing is fairy tales, which is mostly in the form of books, and I just loved books, library trips, and I had this special fascination, again, not unique to me, with dragons and all things fantastical. I loved unicorns, but back then it wasn't like they are today. Dragons weren't cutesy things, and unicorns weren't even cutesy things. Most everything that I saw of fairy tales was, it still had this almost medieval mysterious quality to it. They were just starting to get into this new thing where, you know, the dragons and the unicorns, they might be the actual characters in the story, more than just like this mystery that's out there. But I think that makes a big difference. That nature and also the fantastical were these mysteries of the real world that I was living in, and I longed for them. And I was fascinated by, you know, witches and ghosts and skeletons, just anything to do with Halloween, really, but not just at Halloween, because there were all these different books in this one little section in the kids section in the library about those things, and I would just pore over every single one of them. I had a special fascination with that, and I didn't know why, but I think now it's that I just loved the mysterious and things that were related to the spirit. So there's fairy tales, and then there's Bible stories, and the Bible stories are, you know, my fairy tales, the fairy tales that were told to me, that to me were real. And I'm not saying that to like, if anybody ever happens to watch this, if anyone even ever watches this, and you believe in the Bible, like, don't be alarmed and think, oh, he's saying the Bible's a fairy tale. No, I'm saying that, you know, children want fairy tales to be true. And so for a child who wants fairy tales to be true, and then you teach them that the Bible is true, well, then for them, the Bible is the fairy tale that you get to actually have as real in your life. And so you hold on to it for all it's worth, regardless of how strange some parts of it may be. And fairy tales are always strange, you know. And so, you know, I learned all the main Bible stories. What are you doing, Mara? Just getting tangled up in her leash. Just making this a challenging experiment for me. Come on. You know, I learned all the most important Bible stories, like you know, Adam and Eve in the garden, and Noah's Ark. What's next? Joseph and the coat of many colors. The Israelites crossing the Red Sea. David and Goliath. Daniel in the lion's den. Jonah and the big fish. It was really important in our church that it was not a whale, it was a big fish. So this is another part of my spiritual journey that's real important, is the type of church that it was. It was a Church of Christ, which is part of the early American Restoration movement, which in its beginning was all about simplifying Christian faith so that there could be unity among different denominations, because it was very sectarian at that time. But I won't go into that too much, because this is about my story, and I didn't understand all this when I was a kid. But it affected the type of church experience I had. So the basic things that always had to be right was, you know, the Bible had to be correct about everything. It didn't have any mistakes in it. No historical mistakes, no scientific mistakes, definitely no theological mistakes. Everything was written by God and just happened to be shared through the medium of certain human authors. And it was all there for a reason. So there's nothing in the Bible anywhere that's accidental. It all has to be there for a reason, and it all has to agree with each other. And so however you interpret it has to hold all those things together. So there were very specific things that were assumed to be self-evident in my church background, which was things like you have to be baptized, and you have to be baptized the right way and with the right timing and stuff like that, or you can't be saved. And can't be saved means like there's no chance of you going to heaven, which means the only other alternative is you're going to hell. And of course that lasts forever, and that's not good. And again, this is the story of a spiritual journey, so I'm not actually trying to disrespect what I think any of these realities are actually about. I think these are actually spiritual realities, but I think that they tend to get minimized into caricatures of what they really are in religion. And so anyway, but that's the type of character of the church. But we really loved to celebrate, and one of the big things in my life as a kid was the holidays, and especially Halloween and Christmas. Of course, those being the biggest, most fun holidays. But not just that, there's more to do, there's more to participate in. You become more part of those holidays, those two in particular. They change the world. They transform the world into this magical, different world that you get to live in during the time that they're happening. And I had this debate with myself as a kid over whether I liked Halloween or Christmas more. And probably a lot of people have experienced that too. But again, for me, this is very personal, because it's actually a really important beginning part of my life's whole spiritual journey and how I understand things now. And I didn't understand why I needed to have a favorite or one to be better than the other. And as I got older, I even felt bad about it. Like I couldn't love both of these things equally at the same time, because one was dark and spooky and it was about death, and yet I was irresistibly attracted to it. And then the other one was about life and beauty and hope, and was supposed to be more positive, and I loved it for all those reasons. But I felt like to love Christmas meant that I probably shouldn't love Halloween so much. And so I had this little kind of tug of war inside of me. And I didn't say that, I always had this strong sense of things need to be right and wrong. I always had a very active conscience, and so I didn't take certain things for granted, even the other kids did. And I think she's getting restless and probably needs to go somewhere. But I just loved living in the world that was created, the magic that was created by all these things together. Just the nature, the fairy tales, the things that I learned about science, outer space, sleeping in sleeping bags outside with my dad at night and looking at the sky with binoculars, going camping, celebrating the holidays and wanting them to be real. And like when I believed in Santa Claus, it wasn't so much about I wanted to meet Santa Claus, and I was actually scared of Santa Clauses, in public places. But I wanted to meet him the way I wanted to meet characters from the Bible that I expected to meet when I went to heaven. So for me, for him not to be real was actually like someone dying that I cared about. And then that sowed a little seed of doubt about about other things. So maybe I should pick up there for the next chapter.